Hey y'all, I know we normally talk about books here, but I am the backpacking bookworm, so we're gonna talk about hiking a little bit, and some outdoorsy type stuff. Like I said in previous videos, I want to start incorporating more of this type of stuff into my content, just try and diversify. That way I have regular content for y'all, because I'll be honest, I struggle a little bit when it comes to the booktube content sometimes. I don't like to do what everybody else is always doing. I don't really want to be like a voice out of 100,000 people on here, just saying the same thing. So if I don't have anything that I feel is new or unique in some way or contributing to adding to the conversation, then I don't always want to make content on stuff, if it's just like what everybody else is doing, even if it's what's popular. So today I wanted to talk about some of the lessons I've learned in my last like year or two hiking, as it is my other primary hobby. You don't see me hiking a lot in the summer, and that's because I live in fucking Virginia and it's like 107 degrees and 90% humidity this time of year. So pretty much any time like late June until like early September is no thank you for me. Yeah, so spring and fall and like very early winter and very late winter are really when I do the most hiking. At least if it's local. Anyways, before we go into this video, I did want to talk about something that's affecting people in my state and a neighboring state in Kentucky. As you may know, it's made national news at this point, so if you don't know, you need to know that Kentucky and southwestern Virginia experienced a astronomically bad flood earlier in July. Many people were either displaced from their homes were destroyed, and people died, and many people were injured. It's considered a national emergency, so I am going to leave some links below if you want to donate or if you want to learn more about what's going on down there. Please check them out. I really wanted to include this on this video because I am a Virginian. I was born, raised here, I still live here, and southwestern Virginia in particular is an incredibly beautiful area, even though it's economically really rough down there for a lot of people. Kentucky as well is a very poor area of our country. My family came from West Virginia, my dad's side of the family, so I have family that's still in West Virginia, and the state also struggles with a lot of these problems. So pretty much all of Appalachia could potentially face this type of issue with climate change. And the people being so economically disadvantaged there definitely doesn't help, because when they are displaced from their homes, they don't have the money to rebuild their homes. They barely have the money to get by that week. So obviously I feel very strongly about helping these people out. This is a really horrible thing that happened to them, and it could be a number of reasons, climate change being one of them. They had a lot of rain all at once, non-stop for several days, which didn't help. But the main contributor we are seeing is mountaintop removal, and if you're not aware what this is basically where they remove the tops of mountains in order to access coal veins. Or I guess they call them reams, I think is what they call them. Anyways, they remove tops of mountains entirely and flatten them in order to access the land for coal mining. And that in of itself contributes to erosion, which contributes to landslides when they get rain like this, and flash flooding. So it also can contribute to contaminating drinking water downstream. The coal mining thing in Appalachia is a very controversial topic because while it is really bad for the environment, and a lot of people, you know, are anti-coal these days, myself included, it does provide the people of that region with income and a lot of people with jobs. Without ranting too much, I did just want to mention that as a preface, because I hike these areas a lot of the time. I consider all of Appalachia one of the most beautiful places in the country. It's my home. I wouldn't change it for the world, honestly. I used to hate living here so much and wanted nothing but to get out. And then I got out and saw other places and realized that where I live, while it might not be, you know, the highest peaks, you know, these massive mountains you see out west, Appalachia is really underrated and beautiful old forests. So anyways, if you feel inclined, please check out the links below. At least read about what's going on. You know, search it on the online and stuff. Because it is something that's going to continue to impact this region most likely, and I feel really bad for the people that have been affected by this. All right, so let's just go into some of the lessons that I've learned in my last like year and a half of hiking. And I just want to preface this by saying this is from the perspective of somebody who is a self-proclaimed fat girl. So I'm about 100 pounds overweight. I'm a pretty short person and I'm not thin, okay? So if you're a fellow plus size hiker, these might be some tips you want to know going straight into it. If you're new to hiking and you're plus size, this is definitely going to be useful for you, trust me, because I learned the hard way with some of these. Even if you're not plus size, if you're a newbie hiker or if you're looking to get into hiking, these are definitely going to be tips that you might want to check into. Some of them are just safety things and some of them are kind of like tips that are gonna make your life just a little bit easier when you're on the trail. All right, so my #1 tip that I have learned in the last year of hiking is to pace yourself and take breaks when you need to. Literally no one on the trail should be rushing you, and if they are, they don't belong there. This is not a race. You're here to have fun. And that rolls right into our second tip, and that is plan for way more time than you think you'll need. This allows you to take your time. My suggestion is to show up early and plan on leaving when the sun is going down, because this allows for the most time for you to get to where you're going. Don't do what I do and say, this is supposed to take me 2 hours, let me plan 2.5. Plan at least double. That way you can just take your time and you don't feel like you're on a schedule, you don't feel like you have to rush to get there, because all of those lead to overexertion, and especially when the weather is bad, you don't want to do that. Tip #3 is take ample amount of snacks and water, plus the little tidbit of, if you can, take some electrolyte tablets. I have some, I don't have them on me so I can't show you, but I bought them on Amazon. I think they're called Noom. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll put them right here. So these are electrolyte tablets you can just put in your water and they dissolve. I definitely recommend having some of these on hand when you go hiking, especially when it's hot and you know you're going to be sweating a lot. If you're like me, it doesn't matter what time of the year you hike, what temperature it is, you're going to sweat your ass off. It's definitely really important to supplement your water with something with electrolytes. Now this can be in the form of snacks, food even. Like if you want to pack yourself a lunch, you just have to make sure that you're getting salt and stuff back into your system, because if you're just drinking straight water and not eating anything and not supplementing with electrolytes, you're gonna get yourself in trouble on the trail. Tip #4 is make sure you download all of your trail maps before you leave. You may think you're not gonna need the trail map, especially if it's a short trail or pretty straightforward trail, well marked, whatever, but in case you do, you better have it. Case in point, I did a hike very locally to me, which I thought was pretty simple. It was supposed to be an easy hike, supposed to be pretty short. Took June on it with me and got lost twice because I was so overheated. The time of the year that I went was like late-ish spring, but not quite when the trees in the area have started to leaf. So there was no leaves on the trees. And because of the sun beating on me nonstop, I got really overheated. And had heat exhaustion and like maybe a very like teetering into heat stroke type of situation, and got turned around twice on the trail. And had I not had the map downloaded, I would have been in a much worse place than I actually was, because with it downloaded, I was able to navigate myself back on trail twice and get back to my car and everything was okay. But definitely could have been a dangerous situation had I not had the map with me. Tip #5 is related to if you hike with your pet. So if you hike with your dog, I definitely recommend taking snacks and water for them as well. In fact, this is a hard requirement. I take usually just a couple biscuits, you know, decent sized biscuits for June so she can have something on the trail. And she gets her own bottle of water, and I take one of those collapsibles. I have a carabiner on it so that it just hooks to my bag. super easy to use. But yeah, definitely take the same like food, water type of stuff that you do for yourself, for your dog, and that's for the same exact reason. One thing I don't recommend is taking like an entire meal, because if you have a large breed of dog, exercising right after they eat is not a good idea. So just something to keep in mind. Going into tip number 6, it kind of leans off of that, but that's consider leaving your dog at home if you are hiking a unfamiliar trail. This goes back to the situation I had earlier this year. So when it was happening, my main concern really wasn't myself, because while it wasn't a super busy trail, I had encountered people on it already and talked to them and stuff. So I was like, surely if I pass out, what's gonna happen to my dog? Is she gonna freak out if I pass out? She was on a harness and leash, but I'm like, is she gonna pull the leash out of my hand and run off? So I was really worried about her and what that meant if I had an emergency on the trail. So that's just my tip. Unless you're traveling and you have somebody going with you, I really recommend that you only take your dog along on a trail that you're familiar with, or that you vetted really well. Like perhaps like read about it on all trails, although all trails can be interesting sometimes. Like a moderate hike is not exactly moderate. If you have the option to do the trail before you take your dog along, maybe consider doing that. It really depends on your circumstances. If you're super comfy taking your dog along on a new hike, then by all means, but this is what I've decided I'm gonna do from now on. If my husband can't go with me, then I am not taking June along when I solo hike a new place. This is a tip specifically for the summertime, especially if you live on the East Coast, Southern East area. So in the summer, go early and avoid midday if possible. So try to plan your break time around like noon to like 2 o'clock. If you can avoid being out and you're already done with your hike by then, like go super early. I'm talking like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, right when the sun is coming up. You're hitting the trail type of thing. And this is to avoid the worst of the heat. Now, tip number 8 specifically is for anybody like me who takes their photography gear along for whatever reason, and that is pack only what you know you're gonna need. I have a really bad habit still of taking like an extra lens that I never end up using. I have like one of those Gorilla Pods tripods, the flexible ones. I take that one with me. I don't take my full standard tripod. And I take like one lens and extra batteries. And that's about it, usually now. I don't take a whole lot with me when I go hiking because it adds weight, and the more stuff you have to carry, the harder it is to hike. Trust me on this one. Yeah, that's my last tip there, is only pack what you know you're gonna need. Try to keep it as light as possible. Some things are way more important than others. Okay, so those are my tips, and I just wanted to go into some of the actual gear that I'm really glad I invested in or had, just in case, because I don't want to be one of those people that like you need a ton of gear to participate in this stuff, because you don't, but some of it is quite nice to have, especially if you're like me. Like, I have issues with my knees. I don't know what I did, but about 4 or 5 years ago at one of my jobs, I just remember I jumped out of the back of the van after loading dog crates into the van, and when I hit the ground, my knee, something popped. So I definitely tore something. Never went to the doctor, but I ended up being in a knee brace for like 4 months, I want to say. And if I overdo it, it will pop again. It feels like, I described it as a twang. It feels like something, like rubber bands snapping. And then immense pain, and I can't put pressure on my knee. It's like on the bottom of my kneecap. If you're any doctors here might know what the fuck is wrong with me, let me know. But anyways, so yeah, I have bad knees, a mix of like injury and it just being a hereditary thing. My knees are in not great shape, so you know, stuff like that. If you're like me, you have mobility problems, chronic pain, you're a fat person like myself, whatever the reason, some of this gear I have found super handy. Number 1 on my please do this for yourself, buy them, is a pair of good quality hiking boots or shoes. I highly recommend you get a waterproof pair. I have a pair of, I believe they're Columbia's, and I think they were like 80 bucks when I bought them. I think I got them on sale. You could probably find a pair of used ones that are already gonna be broken in. Either way, I definitely recommend you get a pair of waterproof hiking boots or shoes, and don't cheap out. Don't get like the cheapest pair you can find. Get some that have like really good reviews, are from a very good brand. Just my recommendation, because they will hold up. Chances are the pair that I have are gonna last me like 10, if not more, years. So definitely recommend that. Your feet will thank you. I used to hike in sneakers and in the summertime in sandals, so like hiking sandals, and I don't do that anymore. And my feet are better for it, trust me. Not only can you actually injure yourself with improper footwear on the trail, especially if it's like rocky, it's not like a super cleared path. If you're doing any level of climbing, steps, rock scrambling, anything like that, you're definitely gonna want quality footwear. And you don't wanna be hiking in wet shoes. Trust me, people. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is, it sucks. That kind of brings us to our second tip here, is some type of thick hiking appropriate sock. You can buy like hiking specific socks online, but you don't really need those. You just want a thicker, more durable pair of socks. If you're planning on hiking when it's cold, you're gonna want like some wool socks or something thick. Keep your feet warm and dry. Trust me, you'll be happy that you did it. Another thing that I'm super glad that I invested in was my hip bag. So this was a more recent purchase. I got mine from Sipsy Wilder because it was really cute and I liked it. And the one I got, you can extend the strap to wear it crossbody and wear it on your back, or like as on your side, like a side bag, which I do in day-to-day. I actually use this bag all the time right now. This is my go-to daily bag, and it has just enough space for all the stuff that I really need. You can also wear it around your hip, and I'll tell you, I put it around my back a lot of the time, or like my back side kind of area, not quite on my side, because I put my camera gear on the opposite, and it helps a lot. If I'm rock scrambling, I don't want to be fucking with a bag. I don't want a lot of weight on my back because it makes it harder to balance. The weight lower on my body has actually helped a lot with this. If I'm rock scrambling to get to a place to take a picture or something like that. Recently, when I went to Blackwater Falls, I had to go kind of like down this steep embankment at Ellicala Falls to photograph it, and this really helped. Having this bag really helped me in that situation. Had I had a heavier or like backpack type bag, I would have been struggling. Next on my list of things that I really recommend, carabiners. I mentioned this before, but basically because you can snap all kinds of things to your bag, to your belt, to other things, like if your water bottle has, you know, a loop, like a handle like this shaker bottle does, then you can snap a carabiner to that. Yeah, like I said, I keep June's water bowl attached to my gear. I have one on my GorillaPod tripod that allows me to kind of scrunch it up as small as I can and attach it to my bag so that I don't have to actually carry it with me all the time. I've already mentioned the Gorilla tripod, but that is on the list here. If you're a photographer, I really recommend you get one of these. It's much easier than taking a full-size tripod. A recent purchase that I have not had the chance to use thoroughly yet has been a gimbal. I got a cheap one that I can use with my phone. But this is if you plan to take any videos while you're actually walking, it's gonna steady it a lot. I have had trouble with my camera actually being rather shaky when I'm on the trail, so just something to keep in mind. If you're gonna do a lot of hiking and filming while you're actually moving quite a bit, then a gimbal is gonna be a good investment. I mentioned before my water bottle with the strap, or an insulated water bottle, preferably you could get both. Definitely recommend this. Again, this all goes back to keeping your hands free. You don't want to be having to carry the water bottle in your hand or stuff like that. So if you don't get one with a strap, I recommend you have a backpack that has a slot big enough for a decent sized water bottle. This is a dog thing, but I definitely recommend you have a long lead or hands-free adaptable leash. They do sell some where you can put them a variety of ways. So you can put them around your waist, you can put them across your body. And again, this is keeping your hands free. June has I believe a 50-foot lead that we use on hikes I'm very familiar with. So when we go out to Conway Robinson and hike, this is the leash I tend to take, just so she can sniff and be a little more free on the trail. I don't recommend you use a super long lead or a flexi lead. For example, don't use a retractable leash, please. They're dangerous for your dog. Case in point, there was a TikToker I believe I saw who their dog jumped over a railing on a boardwalk type hike they were on to try to chase a deer, and then they had to figure out how they were going to get their dog back over, and all of this was because the dog was on the retractable leash. Consider the trail and the other people on the trail when you're using a long lead. Definitely make sure your dog has good recall. I don't recommend letting your dog just like run to the end of a 50-foot lead at all times. Definitely make sure there's not other people around, other dogs, that type of thing. Just make sure you're always courteous to people on the trail. But it is something that I like to use when I go, say, for a really midday, middle of the week kind of hike where there's like 2 people on the trail, everybody's at work. June gets to go on the long lead. When we hike in the woods behind my house, she also gets to go on the long lead because it's actually more beneficial for dogs to sniff than it is for them to like hike or walk, really. It's more beneficial if your dog has a enriched hike where they're sniffing, they're able to stop and sniff and explore a little bit, than if they're just exercising nonstop. So definitely something I recommend, but a hands-free leash is great as well. And then I recommend you get a trekking pole. This is going back to my thing about my knees. I'm really glad I got one. I don't double trek, but I use it usually when I'm stepping up or down a pretty big step or like rock scrambling to kind of brace myself. One of the best things I've bought. And I got one I think for like 20 bucks. So you can get a pretty inexpensive one and it'll hold up. I also recommend you pick up a solar charger. So it's gonna be like a power bank type thing. And this is for emergency purposes. You can charge your phone, you can charge, whatever you need to, but a solar one. We have this in our emergency kit usually. We don't take it with us all the time, but it is something if you're planning on doing a big hike, definitely take one along with you. And then I also recommend you get a pocket knife, and this is just for emergency. If your dog, especially if your dog gets hung up on something, if you get hung up on something, if you need to make cordage in an emergency situation, whatever you need to do, if you need to cut clothes, to use like as a tourniquet in an emergency situation, a knife can come in handy for a lot of things. And self-defense. So definitely recommend you get a good quality pocket knife and you take it with you. I also recommend you get a good quality raincoat. We have Columbia's. They are worth it. Trust me, they're durable. They don't make you too muggy inside, and thin enough to be breathable. They have a hood, and the hood cinches. If you think it might rain, take it with you. It's definitely worth it. The raincoat and waterproof boots are like the #1 thing against being soaked on the trail and ending up in a really dangerous spot. And my last personal recommendation is a national parks pass. I could go on and on about this, but you can use this at all the national parks and national forests to get free entry. It's like $80 for a whole year. And if you use it like 3 or 4 times usually, it's gonna be worth it. Like it already paid itself off. And then I have a couple recommendations, just 2 recommendations for your dog. So 1, please get your dog microchipped. In the situation that your dog may get off its lead, slip a lead, get spooked, run into the woods, it's another layer of protection when your dog is found for it being reunited with you. But please make sure that you keep the information on the registration site up to date. Sometimes you have to pay a subscription fee to keep it current, so just keep that in mind. And then my second pet-related recommendation is if your dog is like mine and she likes to jump in the water all the time, please get them lepto-vaccinated. This is something your vet can talk to you about some more, but it is a waterborne or wild animal excrement-borne disease, basically, primarily like pee from rodents and stuff like that. Leptospirosis can be deadly and it can be passed on to people, so it's definitely a very good idea to protect your pet from this if they go hiking frequently, if they might be drinking standing water or jumping in creeks like my dog does, and she gets in there and kind of mouths the water, that type of thing. Definitely recommend having them lepto-vaccinated. Again, you definitely want to talk to your vet about these recommendations, but I'm just putting them out there for people who might not know about it. Another vaccination you may want to look into is a Lyme vaccine if your pet is potentially going to get bit by ticks. Now, they should be on flea and tick prevention anyways, and that will kill the ticks, but doesn't prevent the ticks from actually biting them. So a Lyme vaccine can definitely be helpful if you're worried about your pet catching limes. All right, guys, so those are my tips and recommendations for any newbie hikers or hikers who are larger bodied like myself. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this from me, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.